All right. Welcome to another edition of Shabbat Lounge. This is Matt
And Jake here.
and we are bringing you part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, maybe down at the bottom somewhere there'll be a part 1, and go back and watch part 1. But if you want to start at part 2, I mean, that's fine. I often start at the back of the book and read around.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the tradition I started from.
Yeah.
We started from the back of the book and learned to read the front.
That's right.
So it's fine.
As long as you get all the content, that's all.
That's right. But we're glad you're here, and we appreciate you taking a minute to stop by and listen to Shabbat Lounge. And we ask that you would like us, you would share this, subscribe it. We also have some merch available.
Yes, at teespring.com.
Yeah, and we're under Sabbath Lounge. But we are continuing our discussion about Torah and the Constitution, how they're alike, how they're similar, and where we find ourselves in America today.
Yeah, and I think a good question we should ask ourselves, and that I will ask Matt here, is, so where do your loyalties lie?
Good question. So that is the question before us. You know, are you more loyal to the Torah, or are you more loyal to the Constitution? And so I think it is easy to wrap ourselves in this American flag and get confused sometimes about what we should be loyal to. And the scriptures we've read recently, and to me, the Hebrews 11 scripture keeps coming to mind, where it talks about we're not really citizens here. We're aliens and strangers in a foreign land.
Right.
And we're supposed to be holy and set apart. And so that is a question to ask yourself. You know, if there's no difference between you and how everyone else around you is living their life, that should be pause for concern for you, because
take a look at it.
The Torah is very clear that we're supposed to be holy and set apart, and it should be obvious that we're different.
Yeah, not different for different sake,
right.
But there's a right kind of different and a wrong kind of different, and it's spelled out in the Torah.
That's right. So we'll dive right into this, and if I can remember how to do this. And so we're going to go away for a second, but so here we are, the Torah and the Constitution. Was there something
Go to the next
there?
slide there.
Okay.
There.
So how are they the same? So we're going to take a look at this.
Right.
We've been
If
talking
you
about
go to part 1, you'd see how they're different, some differences. And who knows, we might sprinkle in some differences here too.
Sure, we sure might. We are liable to. All right, so we've got them laid out side by side, the Constitution on the left and the Torah on the right, which it should be on the right.
Because it's right.
The right.
Yeah. So they both have a judicial system, and I touched on this at the end of part 1, so we'll just kind of summarize this again. So Torah has righteous judges, and the Constitution has blind justice, right? So that's kind of a difference there, that one is based on, Yahweh's judgments, and the other is blind justice, which is the same, which it doesn't sound like it, but those are the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know if they are the same, because, this righteous judge implies that the judge has a predisposed disposition,
sure,
if I'm using these big words right, to be aligned with the theocracy, to be aligned with the one true Elohim. He's supposed to be biased that way.
Right. Biased toward truth.
Which is a little different than the blind justice.
Well, okay, so I'll tell you where we're going with this one,
okay,
and how they're the same.
Okay.
Because you're right. It depends on how you're looking at it, right? Define your terms, right?
Yeah.
So how is the Constitution, how do they offer blind justice, and how?
Well, I think it's supposed to be, go to the Constitution. It is the source of all truth, is kind of the comparison, where the righteous judge, Yahuwah, is the source of all truth. And in our justice system today, we say that blind justice means that you always go back to the Constitution, and it is blind.
Blind to what is the thing? It's blind to your status,
mm-hmm,
and your standing in the country. It's only looking at your actions, just like in Torah. It doesn't care who you are. It's only looking at your actions.
That's fair.
That's why they're the same.
Okay. Now talk to us about Isaiah.
All right. Yes. 33. So how they're the same? Isaiah 33:22. Right? For Yahweh is our judge. He's our lawgiver. He's our king. It is he who will save us. Right? So that is essentially how they come up with the three branches of government.
By the way, it's not science and it's not our president
Exactly.
that will save us.
Exactly.
Contrary to popular
It
belief.
is He, Yahweh, who will save us. Exactly. Good point.
So once again, we're talking about how they are the same. So Torah, the check, and so for Torah, the check is the Torah. Constitution has power in three parts with checks and balances.
So they both have checks and balances, right?
Correct.
The judge that rules in a Torah theocracy is going back to the Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Constitution, right? The executive branch is checked and balanced by the executive branch. Did I say that first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, legislative, checked by the executive branch using the Constitution as their standard. Mm-hmm. And if you're not adhering to the standard, a judgment comes against you, just like in the Torah.
Yeah.
So we'll see a lot that it's, the format of the Constitution and our justice system and everything follows a similar format.
Correct, yeah. And so Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, no person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overt act. That should sound familiar.
It sounds very familiar,
yes,
right?
Yes, it does.
So we can see that, this is the same. You need two witnesses to confirm a matter in Torah.
Very good. So, so they have this similarity, which is kind of a difference. So Constitution says, do whatever makes you happy, said the Constitution. Do what makes the Father happy. So I guess the theme is being happy.
The theme
but,
is happiness.
Do what makes the Father happy is the Torah, which is different than the Constitution. Very different.
Yeah.
And so Torah and Constitution, the Torah is the righteous, in Torah, the righteous king of the universe presides. So how do the tribes select leaders?
So the leaders were appointed by Yah, right? We have Moses and Aaron, Joshua, Abraham, Yeshua, the Levites. Moses appoints judges over the people. The people don't select, right? In the Korah rebellion, they picked men from the tribes, and that didn't end well, right? And then I have a little stab here to Exodus 20. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance and said to Moses, "Speak to us yourself, and we will listen. But do not have Elohim speak to us, or we will die." So this is an example of Moses being a representative, just as our representative republic is. Mm. They had a representative to go to Yahweh for them. Mm-hmm. And as in Yeshua in Pilate's court, he asks the people, "Who do you want me to release?"
And then I do see a mistake here. So when we talk about Constitution, each state, country, state, and federal.
Ooh, federal.
Selects its leaders.
If you didn't point that out, no one would have noticed that.
I know, but I couldn't help but not.
No, we have the most intelligent listeners.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Our audience is top notch, and they would have caught that immediately.
That's right. Did you talk about Yeshua here in the court?
Yes. Okay. So, right, they ask, "Who do you want me to release?" And he gets the people's opinion on it, and it goes downhill.
Once again, we see where it takes you when you get the people's opinion. Because You know what? It turns out history has shown us that a lot of times the people, they're not so smart, and they're not always right.
No. And here's two examples of, I think this is possibly the only two examples of voting, of people voting in Scripture. And
well, there's more, because it talks about them casting lots and things like that.
True.
So,
well, yeah.
Which is similar, but
yeah,
different.
That's more like drawing the short straw.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we have Torah is the perfect law of liberty. And the Constitution attempts to create liberty that goes along with the law, following the guidelines of the Constitution.
Right. So the idea of similarity is that is the idea of freedom, right? The Torah is meant as a law of liberty, right? From Psalm 119, it's the law of liberty, and from Psalm 19 verse 7, it's perfect, right? So the Constitution being generated, now they know we can't reach perfection on this side of the second coming, right? So it's this attempt at reaching out for liberty and freedom, and they're getting that idea from the Torah, which is a perfect and just law of liberty.
Right. Yeah.
So they take that idea of freedom that most countries didn't even consider in the day, and they're saying we need some of this freedom stuff that this Bible talks about.
Yeah, see Psalm 119:45, law of liberty, and Psalm 19:7, perfect law.
Right.
And they unite together.
Yeah.
So, and as we continue, there's no prohibition on the free exercise of religion. You've got freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to peacefully assemble, freedom to petition the government for redress of grievances.
Yes. So these, in case you couldn't name your First Amendment rights,
Yes.
I think some people can get 2 or 3 of them, but to get all 5 is difficult for people, I think. But so how does the Torah allow you free exercise of religion?
Well, it goes back to what we talked about before about blessings and curses. I mean, you're free to choose a life of blessings or choose the life of cursings. And, you know, I always go back to the Jacob and Esau. You're free to be Jacob. You're free to be Esau. And, the results of their life and the fruit that they yielded are very different.
Yeah.
And I want to be more like Jacob and the way he lived his life.
Yeah. How about freedom of speech? Do you have freedom of speech in the Torah?
Absolutely. You know, we see it over and over with Moses and these other people. They were free to speak their mind, and they ask and say some things at times that are very bold. And at times you're like, I can't believe he just said that to the Most High Elohim. And there's lots of examples of that. So, and they could peacefully assemble, you know, and they do get together, but sometimes when they peacefully assemble, bad things did happen. You know,
Yeah.
You could say the golden calf is a product
of a peaceful assembly.
Of a peaceful assembly.
A little too peaceful.
So yeah, that's not a good thing. And petition, would be, prayer and supplication. We do see lots of examples where, especially in the Torah, where Moses intervenes and takes away the wrath of the father.
Yeah, we see him petition the Father.
Yeah, over and over. We see Abraham do it and go, "What if you find 5 righteous?" And and have all these negotiations. And Moses does it, at the beginning of his life when he says, "Hey, I really can't speak very good. I need someone to help me," and he gives him a helper.
Yes. Now, I have a little monkey to throw in your wrench.
Uh-oh.
For freedom of speech. Okay. Have you ever heard of, this is going to be controversial, have you ever heard of the Deuteronomy 13 test?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. How does that align with freedom of speech?
You're free as long as it lines up with the truth in the Torah.
That's right.
Which is kind of ironic, because isn't that what we see happening today? That you're free to say whatever you want as long as it lines up with the truth of the mainstream people.
Yeah.
And then it's okay.
Yeah.
But if you go against them, then it's a problem.
Right. And that's a counterfeit of the truth, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, yes, there are limitations on the speech that you're allowed through Torah.
Mm-hmm.
And pray tell, Matt, what is the consequence if you choose to use your freedom of speech to falsely prophesy?
I believe it's death, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Certain death. Certain death awaits.
It certainly is. So maybe that'll give people a little bit of a perspective on this whole freedom of speech situation and what's the truth on it. Torah or Constitution? I know that's a hard one to
Which
look
one
at.
you want to pick?
Yeah, that's why I opened it with where's your loyalty lie?
But there is something to be said about what we did talk about. There is freedom. Our God, Yahuwah is big enough to handle our grievances.
Yes.
He's big enough to have this conversation too. He's not small-minded and can't stomach it. He may have a harsh answer like he did with Job, and may set you in your place.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah. Now, we're not advocating you go out and stone people. That's not our job.
No.
Okay.
We're not saying we're trying to bring that back.
No, but that is we do not have a righteous judge that is handing out, towing the line of Torah to hand out these righteous judgments at this time.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to take a look at these amendments. Second Amendment, the right to bear and keep arms. And the Third Amendment, the quartering of troops. The Fourth Amendment, protection of unreasonable search and seizure. And so when I used to teach this to kids, I would try to put flesh on a little bit for them, and I would talk about how the Third Amendment, literally these British soldiers could come in, knock on your door in the middle of the night, and you basically had to, if you had no other bed, you might have to give up the very bed you're sleeping in. So this nasty, dirty soldier who's been out in the field for days can come sleep in your nice clean bed because they demanded it and you had to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't, they could probably shoot you on spot or arrest you or do all kinds of things to you. So they put that in there to try to protect us from having to do that, and which is a great thing, but definitely something we haven't seen much of in the modern, since that point forward. That hasn't been much of an issue, but it was in there because of that reason.
I think that does apply today, and okay. I'll show you why after. Okay, so for the Second Amendment, we can look to Luke 22, verse 36. He said to them, "But now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." Now, to me, this sounds like make sure you keep your arms with you. Mm-hmm. And so
be prepared.
Yeah. So I think that aligns with the Second Amendment. So with the third one.
Oh, and another thing, it's implying that you have something to go in this purse. That is a weird thing. We don't usually say that to men. Hey, go get your purse. That's not a common thing that we say today, but we'd say wallet.
Yes.
And so, which it does imply that you've saved up, you've laid by and store, and you're prepared, which says be prepared and be mobile, ready to go, and be ready to protect yourself.
Yeah. As far as the Third Amendment, it's not mentioned much in Torah, but we had this idea of Rahab when she brings the spies in. That's kind of a quartering of troops.
Yeah, it is.
And I suppose she could have denied them.
Yeah.
And she would have been smoten with the rest of the town.
Her story would be a lot different.
Yeah. And then as far as protection from unreasonable search and seizure, I don't know that people really had this right. You know what I mean? But
well, no, I would say they, because look at all the things about the priest when you have a skin disease. You have to go show yourself, and you might have to lift up your shirt or whatever, to show the priest this terrible skin disease. I mean, so
having your privacy.
I don't think you did.
Yeah.
And talk about privacy. Let's talk about circumcision.
Yeah.
So that's pretty private.
Yeah.
And
are you allowed to come to the feast?
And that was, yeah. So I don't know if it doesn't seem to apply as much there. So
yeah, and we ran into this. There's a bit of a passage that kind of deals with this where they're, I'll just read through it real quick, just a couple verses. Joshua 7, 13 and 14, then we're going to skip down to 22 and 23. "Go consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow, for this is what Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, says. There are devoted things among you, Israel. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove them." So they've lost these items that were taken as they ransacked Jericho. "In the morning, present yourselves tribe by tribe. The tribe of Yahweh chooses shall come forward, clan by clan, The clan of Yahweh that Yahweh chooses shall come forward family by family, and the family Yahweh chooses shall come forward man by man. Whoever is caught with the devoted things shall be destroyed by fire, along with all that belongs to him. He has violated the covenant of Yahweh and has done an outrageous thing in Israel. Skip down to 22. So Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent with the silver underneath. Do you think they asked for if they could go into their house?
No.
They took the things from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and spread them out before Yahweh. So they went in, found the. Now, of course, Yahweh has the upper hand here. He can see what's hiding in their tent.
Right.
Now, real quick on the quartering of troops, how I'm saying this applies today. Do you have a phone?
Yes.
Do you think the government can see you through it?
Yeah, probably so.
Okay. Well, you've quartered them troops in your home.
Okay. Yeah, and often it probably is. It could be a government officer that is looking in.
Yeah. So something to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, and so we're going to look at the Fifth and Sixth Amendment now. Fifth Amendment, you got a grand jury, protection from double jeopardy, protection from self-incrimination. Boy, some people don't learn that one very well. Many people have gone down on that one. Sixth Amendment, right to a speedy trial, right to an impartial jury, right to counsel for defense.
All right, so there's no real right to a grand jury or trial by peers. It is swift. It's usually swift judgment. And the double jeopardy thing, there's an example of maybe Nahum chapter 1, verse 9, where you could maybe call that a double jeopardy situation, but that's not a hard and fast rule.
Well, it's hard to have double jeopardy on something when so many of the things we're talking about, the punishment was death. And so, I mean, how can you have double jeopardy if you're not alive?
Well, if you have two witnesses, it's kind of okay. Let's see.
When we talked about how the two witnesses was the same in the Constitution.
Yes.
So we're moving on to Bill of Rights here.
Yep.
Seventh Amendment is right to jury by trial in the federal court, right to sue for damages over $20. The Eighth Amendment, protection from excessive punishment for a crime. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, no more than 40 lashes.
Right. So eye for eye was kind of a woke situation, right? And you have to help the person that you've injured, right, by doing tasks for them and helping them throughout their, get through.
Yeah, as
life,
a kid, I
day.
didn't, I always thought, well, that's weird. You're just going to go poke someone's eye out because they poked your eye out. But I think you're right. It had to do more with you've been inconvenienced. You're going to have to go help this person now. Yeah.
And it's this idea of not punishing more than the crime, right? Right.
Amendment 9, rights cannot be taken away by misconstructing other rights. None of the rights established contradict the other rights. And the 10th Amendment, powers are not granted to the federal government that are reserved to the states or the people. So not all power went to the government. The states have reserved, and that's what we see happening right now in America with the current situations where the things that you have to wear, that's particularly mandated at the state and local level. And we've seen the importance of local judges and things in this time. And this really shows us the 10th Amendment and how these powers have been separated out.
Yes. Supposedly.
Yes.
This is how it's supposed to work, right? Remember, we're living in a situation where the Constitution isn't even really being followed. And we're seeing that now we have a government that's going to be enacted in a few days here. That's going to say, mask mandate for 100 days, right?
Yeah.
Of my first term, it'll be mask mandate for 100 days. Mm-hmm. Whereas, where in the Constitution does it say that they can do that?
Right.
Since it doesn't, who has the power to say it? Oh, it's the states, not the federal government.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh, the 9th Amendment there, you can't contradict other rights in order to take away your rights, right? So something that is given as a right later can't be used to contradict the other rights, right? And we see that in Torah. There's no contradiction in that. So.
Right. It's kind of like add. Supposed to add and take away.
Yeah.
So freedom/liberty. What is freedom? What is the freedom that Yeshua gives to us? Yahushua. What is it?
Is it freedom from sin, or is it freedom to sin?
Good question. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think when you look at it that way, it should be obvious, right?
Yeah. And so, how's America made it? What have we said that this should be?
Well, we've turned it into the freedom to sin. Freedom means I get to do whatever I want.
And how dare you tell me how I shouldn't do it? That's what it's become.
Yeah.
And people fight about it, and that is a great departure from what we see here, where we don't have the freedom to purposely sin.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite verses, Psalm 119:45. And I will walk at liberty, for I seek your precepts. I will walk. Another way to say that is, I will walk about in your freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. Right? We are able to walk in his freedom when we seek out his precepts.
That's good.
So I just think that's fantastic, because time and again, people go, well, I'm free, and Yeshua freed us.
It's a free country.
Yeah, freed you from what?
Yeah.
From sin, not freed you from the law, right? The power of sin. That simple.
So the 10 Commandments are definitely honored. And the first one here.
Oh, you'll see this is credit to Steve Dace from a book he wrote called A Nefarious Plot. This is kind of like the Screw Tapes letter, but for America and the Constitution. So these are some points that he made that I thought were pretty interesting, and how the 10 Commandments. So
I'll read the commandment and you explain that.
Sure.
Okay. So you shall have no other Elohim before Yahweh.
Every state constitution mentions and thanks Elohim for its existence, freedom, or both.
And the second one is, you shall not make any graven images.
So the state is not God, right? Only Yahweh is. Therefore, the state cannot establish a religion or restrict it.
But we did make a lot of graven images.
We did.
Case in point, Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number 3, you shall not take the name of Yahweh in vain.
So the name of Elohim is so sacred, you make every elected official swear an oath of integrity and loyalty. So help me God. Though we know that's not his name, right? A reminder that by betraying your promise to your countrymen, you're really betraying Yahweh. Okay? I think that's pretty interesting.
Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy.
Days of remembrance are protected and made accessible by law.
In fact, we had the blue laws in the United States, which prohibited certain things and certain work from being done on Sunday. And even though we know it wasn't the right day for a Sabbath, but America,
they were trying.
They did try to observe that. They understood that principle.
Yeah.
And number 5, honor your father and mother.
Parents were the ultimate arbiter of how best to rear, educate, and prepare their children to become adults. Only in extreme situations would the state interfere, like if there was documented physical and or emotional abuse. So this idea of honoring your father and mother, it was rampant in society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it used to be very difficult to pull away from families, but we do feel like we're moving into a world where it may not be as difficult as it once was, so unfortunately. And number 6, you shall not murder.
So you have the unalienable right to life mentioned in the Declaration of Independence.
And if you murder in the United States, as long as you're not doing it for the military, you can go to jail and suffer the death penalty.
Yeah.
And number 7, you shall not commit adultery.
The civil law so revered the sacrament of marriage that it originally criminalized marriage behavior outside of the marriage covenant. So we see that that's been attacked by certain people with agendas, but in founding, this was an important idea.
Well, and it's still very frowned upon. You think about,
Yeah, that's true.
it's not considered a favorable thing when we see our political leaders and things, have this issue. Still today, society, doesn't.
Right. But in founding, it more aligned with Torah because there was a penalty for it.
Right.
Like a law.
Right.
In law.
But yes, that seems to be gone. And then number 8, ye shall not steal.
Private property right protected by law.
And number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Perjury is a crime. We impeached a president for it. Do you remember which one that was?
It was early on. That would be Nixon. Said he was accused of lying, but he resigned. But are you thinking about the first president that was impeached?
I'm talking Clinton.
Oh, Clinton.
Right. A lot of people think he was impeached for something else, but
it was for lying. Yeah,
it was actually for lying, for perjury. Also, deceit was grounds for the breaking of contracts, which were treated like civic covenants and in natural law, and therefore only allowed to be breached in extreme circumstances. Lying, false witness, and deceit were considered extreme circumstances back then. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And that seems to be so commonplace today, and it seems like everybody is lying. So you've got the left lying and the right lying,
right.
all about sometimes the same event, and you're like, what really happened?
Yeah. This in number 8, you shall not steal. Private property rights protected by law. See, Torah doesn't promote communism.
Yes.
Private property.
Ye shall not covet.
You don't have the quote unquote right to that which you didn't earn and doesn't belong to you, but instead you have the same opportunity to succeed and fail in the American meritocracy as everyone else does. Remember, this is looking at as founded. You don't have the right to that which you didn't earn and doesn't belong to you, but instead you have the same opportunity to succeed and fail in the American meritocracy as everyone else does. Oh, I feel like I put that in there twice, didn't I?
Maybe so.
Okay, anyway, so that's the 10 commandments.
And where'd you get that from again?
This is a book by Steve Dace called A Nefarious Plot.
Okay.
And so the way he writes it is he is from the perspective of a demon who made this plan to destroy America. And this is kind of what he's attacking here.
That's good. So separation of powers was used as an avenue to acknowledge man's original sin. John Adams quotes Jeremiah 17:9.
Yeah. So there were, in founding, there were these links to why they did certain things, and oftentimes it was biblical precedent. If you look at John Adams, this is where I got that from, a defense of the Constitution of Government of the United States of America. Okay. And that's where he's seen quoting this. And then representatives for the people as Adam, Moses, and Yeshua were. We talked about that a little bit before. How we're a representative republic. And just as these people were representatives for us to go have the in-between between us and Yahweh. Oh, I put some links in here to the architecture that you find in the Supreme Court and religious symbols inside the Supreme Court. And I know there's people that have talked on this kind of topic before that are like, see, the 10 Commandments are all over this stuff.
Right.
And they go, see, the name of Yahweh is written in these places. And that's used as proof that, these things are honored, right? But do you notice the inclusion of pagan religious symbols, including Muhammad and the North Frieze? On the North Frieze, it's called the North Frieze. It's in the the Supreme Court. So here's an example of that here. So this was kind of crazy to me because you see these pictures and you don't know who these people are. But I kind of wrote them down here. So this first couple of folks is Fame. Okay. Let's see. Oh, so that's that guy. Okay. And then you have this Menace character, and you have Hammurabi. Then you get to this Moses character. Then you have this symbol of authority, Solomon. Then Lycurgus. Then this character called Solon. And then this representation of the light of wisdom, Draco, Confucius, Augustus, and this character that depicts history.
Which is a strange thing.
You mean this small naked character?
Yes,
hugging the older robed character.
I don't know what that's about. So
also in Fame is very similar.
Yeah. And you have.
So we can say, see, Moses is right there.
Yeah, he made it.
It's biblical, biblical founding.
It kind of looks like mixing the holy with the profane a little bit to me.
Oh, you say,
so,
do you?
Definitely. And so you've got, Hammurabi and Meneses. How do you say it? Menace, yes. Were sun god worshippers. And definitely these... majority of these represent deities, and go back to the Draco. There's a constellation. There's there are definitely lots of things that have been named after some of these individuals, but definitely very pagan.
Yeah, and then when you look at Fame, the light of wisdom, and history and authority, they're all based on Greek gods and goddesses. So authority there. So that's how well thought of your architecture is, as far as biblical precedent. They won't necessarily look into the Bible to set something up there.
No, it was pretty open to all here.
Yeah. Let's see.
Interesting.
Yeah. And when I first looked at this, I thought Harambe made it on the
Harambe, not that Harambe.
Right. Too soon.
Is
it too soon for that? Okay.
No, it's not too soon.
So I just think that was interesting.
Harambe wrote all these codes. I do remember that about him in history.
He was into all that. Yeah.
And so we borrowed heavily from Mr. Zach Bauer. He put this out on his publication, newtotorah.com, and his YouTube channel, and he had done something similar in a recent post talking about the United States versus God's kingdom. And we've talked about several of these things, about festivals like Independence Day versus Yahuwah's festivals, and you've got the foundation of the Constitution versus the foundation of Torah. Anything else here you want to bring out? But definitely a pretty good contrast, and there are some things that are similar.
Yeah, just that a lot of the festivals for the U.S. are celebrations of man and specific men,
and our accomplishments and what we've done. And then if you've traveled in the United States much, you've gone to places like Hoover Dam. For instance, at Hoover Dam, there is a tremendous amount of symbology of goddess things. And at Hoover Dam is where I started to look at these things and was looking at the deities and the things I was seeing there and going, whoa, what are we saying? And I started going back and looking at the history of Hoover Dam, and especially with the rivers and things, it seems like a good idea. We slowed and controlled these rivers so they didn't flood the cities downstream anymore. Well, first off, we probably should have never built.
It's like, why are you building the city there if it's flooding there?
That was probably a bad idea. That was dumb. You shouldn't have built the city there. The natives probably could have told you, hey, don't build right there. That's dumb. They knew that.
Yeah.
But we thought they were dumb. But especially Hoover Dam, I walked away going, wow, this is this is a moment in time where man really thumbed his nose at God and said, you know what? Look at what we did. We are holding back the river. We built this thing. We did this. It was all about humans and what they did. And so many things here in the United States, we've kind of done that many times over. We've built these monuments and these edifices, if you will, and it's about what we,
these towers
the
of Babel.
people, what we, the people, do versus what he can do. And I think that is the contrast. So I think we're coming to the end of this.
Yep.
And so as we come to the end of this, we hope that you will join us, and we want you to choose the Torah over the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Constitution has given us this freedom to do what we're doing right now. And so we are not saying it's dumb or anything like that. That's not what we're saying here. In fact, we celebrate that we have this thing that has protected us, and many people before us would have loved to have a constitution,
Right.
Even people in the Bible that we've read about that suffered persecution, the Constitution could have protected them possibly from persecution.
Yeah. But I think, too, it's important to remember that, not everything that was granted to us by living in this country is the way Yahweh would have it be done. One thing I think about is kind of the point is, what side of the argument are you going to fall on? Be careful what you're condemning, because you're going to open your Bible and say, oh, I have to be on the other side of that. Because think about one that sticks out in my mind a lot is book burning. It's like, we're real good about saying, don't destroy history, and book burning is what the Nazis did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all this stuff. And then we'll condemn, the left, they just want to burn books and get rid of our history and stuff. And look at what the Muslims did to those other countries. They went in and started burning down their history and stuff. What do you think Yahweh and Yeshua are going to do when Yeshua returns? He's going to burn down a lot of history, and he'll be burning books. I guarantee you that. And just like at my house, there are books that don't come into my house because they are, they're evil. Because
and
the Torah says so.
And books that you've kicked out, and there may be books that I can't remember if I've set a book on fire. I think I actually have. Definitely books have been removed from my shelf and destroyed because I didn't think other people should have them.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm not going to.
But that is interesting that you bring that up. And
so what side of that argument are you going to be on now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be where's your loyalties lie?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
don't get so wrapped up in this Constitution and patriotism that you lose sight of. We are not citizens of this kingdom. We're just passing through, and we're headed to other things. We're headed to greater things, and that's the side of this I want to be on.
Yeah.
So don't be deceived. And we're also entering this time when we know there's going to be great deception. There's going to be a great falling away. You can argue some of these things have already happened, and some of it hasn't happened yet. But definitely we know. First off, we know the world's going to burn. We know the end. We know what it says in Revelation. We know some bad things are coming. And, we want you to be prepared. Spend this time with your family, reading the text, getting right with the Father. Spend way more time worrying about those things than watching the news and watching how the world is burning. So, and I think that will go well with you. And so many times people are camping out in the fear. Yeah. And just feeding on the fear. And I think the more we feed the fear, the more the enemy grows. So Don't feed the fear. But we appreciate you stopping by to take a look at Torah and the Constitution. Remember, this is a 2-part series. You can find part 1 by clicking a link here. This will also be in a playlist. You can Google this, Torah and the Constitution and Sabbath Lounge, and most likely will pop up. But we're not claiming to be experts. No, we want you to dive deeper and try to understand a little bit more about our roots and where we came from and where we should be going.
Yep. And just test all the things.
Yep.
Make sure it's right.
Read your Bible.
Read your Bible. Oh, and it'd be helpful. Read the Constitution. Know what that says too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
that's right.
I think that's lost today.
Yeah, it is.
So,
well, we appreciate you stopping by, and this is Matt signing off.
And Jake, out.
Thank you.